Okay, so I know those last few sections were really theoretical, but I'm glad you stuck in there because now comes the exciting part. We're going to build our e-commerce platform. So first, let's use Create React App to build out our project for us. So I'm going to call it Crown Clothing, actually. Now, this is going to take a little time, so we just have to wait for Create React App to finish setting up our project. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to cd into our new project, and let's open it up. Now, just like last time, it's given us a couple files that we don't actually need. So we don't need any of this service worker code inside of index.js. So let's just get rid of it. We also don't need any of this stuff inside of our app.js file, including this class name. And instead, I'm just going to write hello world. And we also don't need this logo. Now in app CSS, we don't need any of this CSS, so let's get rid of it. And there we go. Okay, now our project is pretty much set up for us to start working with. So what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate what it is that we need to build. So when we look at this, this is the home page. And on the home page, there is a header component, which we can build after. But looking at just the content of the page, there are these 5 menu item components, right? And these 3 look similar, and these 2 look similar. But if we look closely, we'll actually realize that all 5 of them are the same component. The only difference is that these ones are bigger than these ones. So we definitely have to build this menu item component. And there's also a component that's holding these 5 elements together. So there is like a directory menu component we got to build as well. But when we look at this component, we'll see that there is an outside container of some kind and an inside container that holds a title and a subtitle, right? So it's a div with a div, and then there are 2 text HTML elements inside. So let's build that first. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to make a new file called homepage.component.jsx. We're going to import React from React, and we're going to make it a const homepage, which is going to be a functional component because we don't really need any lifecycle methods at this point, nor do we need to store any state. So let's add in our first outside container, which will be our homepage. And then inside will be those 2 components that we were talking about. The container for the menu, and then the actual menu items. So we will move them into their own files after, but let's just put it down so we can see it first. And this I'm going to call directory menu. And then the inside div I'm going to call my menu item. Inside of our menu item, we know that there's this content container, right? So let's just make another div and give it the class name content. And then inside of our content, we want an h1 that is our title. And here we just want to put the text hats. And then we also want a span right after. That will be our subtitle with the text shop now. Now, let us copy this 5 times. Just for now, we'll end up making the components later. And we are going to put jackets. And then this will be women's, and this will be men's. Now, if we save this, we have to also remember to export our new function outside, right? So let's just export as the default, because we're probably not going to export anything else from our homepage component file. Let's import in homepage from homepage. I think it's capital. Yes, it is. Okay. Now, instead of hello world, let us render our homepage component. Okay, so we have to remember to run our project. And let's see now. Okay, there we go. So this is just our directory without any of the styling. So for the styling of this project, we're actually going to use something called Sass. And Sass is just a upgraded version of CSS. So it is a different language, and it has a different file type called Sass, but it reads very similar to CSS, but it has a lot of quality of life improvements. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. So in order for us to include it, we first have to add Node Sass to our project. Now, the great thing about Create React App is that it actually comes with the configuration for Sass right out the gate. As long as we include this package, Create React App will actually configure Webpack and Babel to convert our Sass files into CSS files, because the browser can only read CSS files, right? So this is actually really convenient. And now that that's included, we have to remember to restart our server again. Okay, now this might happen. You might see this bug. All this is saying is that our version of Babel Jest that got installed which is probably a dependency of our Node Sass, is now different from what our yarn file is expecting. So what our initial package was expecting is different now. So we just got to follow these instructions, right? And we'll just follow the yarn instructions because we're using yarn. So let's first delete the yarn lock. So let's delete yarn lock, yarn.lock. And then let's delete the node modules folder. Now here it says to remove Babel Jest from our package JSON, but we actually won't have that seen because it's something that Create React App hides from us, because those are all dependencies that it's managing. So we won't do step 3, and instead we are going to run yarn to install all of our new packages all over again. And hopefully this time all of the versions will match appropriately. So there's a lot of waiting. There's definitely always so much waiting. Come on, you're almost there. Awesome. Okay, so now if we run yarn start again. Okay, so now that our project is loaded, let's just include in that Sass file. So I will show you what our Sass code is going to look like. So we're going to make another file called homepage.styles.sass now. And we're going to paste our Sass in. Now, it actually looks very similar to CSS if you've noticed, right? This is pretty much just a class selector that has some styles in it, and then another class selector with some styles in it. But inside of this one, we'll see that there are other things inside other than just our typical classes, right? Our typical styling. So here, whenever you see this ampersand symbol, this ampersand pretty much means this class that is above it, and then it wants to append this additional selector, right? This first child. So it's saying menu item first child gets this style. So anywhere where a menu item is the first child is going to get this style. Same with this one. It's the equivalent of writing .menu item and then first child in our regular CSS, right? But Sass just lets us nest it so that it's easier to read. And then you'll see this content class name with its own styling as well, right? If you hover over this, you'll see that what it's saying is that any class of content that sits between any element with the class of menu item will get these styles in it. So rather than writing, normally what we would do would be menu item and then dot content like this, right? Instead, what we're going to do is we are going to just write it nested inside. And title is going to be the exact same. So any element with the class title, inside any element with the class content, inside any element with the class menu item, right, is going to get these styles. And that's what's great about Sass, is that it just lets us not have to write a bunch of CSS selectors that look unconnected to each other, right? We can just nest them all inside of the block of their relevant parent-child relationship. And you'll notice that we did the same thing in our HTML for our homepage, right? We have this menu item that has a content, right, child, and then inside of that content is the title and subtitle. Just like our Sass here. Our menu item has a content child, which has a title and a subtitle inside of it. Now we just have to make sure to import our new Sass file into this file. And if we save, if we go now to our project, we'll see that it looks very much closer without the images, right, to this now. Now, in the next lesson, we are going to start moving these components into their own folders, as well as exploring what our final folder structure is going to look like. Now, our project is actually not on GitHub yet, so let's do that. Let's go back to our browser. Let's go to GitHub, and let's create a new repository. I'm going to name my repository Crown Clothing after our project. And then we're going to create it and copy this SSH key that they give us. Then we got to go back to our terminal, into our project, and write git remote add origin, and then paste in that code. And now we've linked our project to that remote that we just created on GitHub. And now if we check the status with git status, we'll see these are the modified files, and these are the new files that we added. So we want to add them all with git add-a to our commit. And then we're going to write git commit-m for message. And we're going to say in our commit message something that is explicit about what this commit contains. So I'm going to say created project with create React app and added files for homepage. Now, I'm going to git push all our commit to origin master. And now if we check and we refresh, we'll see all our code up. Awesome. Now that we have our repository set up, let's move on.